Hi guys, it's Dan here and welcome to Dan's Haunted Cottage. Now today's video is going to be slightly different than than the haunted ones that I've done previously. Today's video will be I'm going to talk about something that changed my life, and it happened to me about 18 years ago now, and it was an accident. It was quite a severe accident. As you know, I used to be a zookeeper and I still work with animals. But many years ago, and I did up until recently, I used to work with wolves. The accident wasn't to do with a wolf, certainly not. It was actually to do with another carnivore. Because obviously, working with wolves, I also was second in charge of a carnivore section. So that involved things like lions, tigers, cheetahs, and other predators. And the accident that I'm talking about, I had with a tiger or a tigress. We used to go in with our tigers, and we did it purely and simply because we felt that it was easier to give them veterinary checks if we could get up close to them and we could feel around them and spend time with them, and we could sort of ascertain whether there was any problems with the medical problems or any illnesses that were just about to come to the forefront. We'd get the early update on them because we were in with them, we were handling them. Now, it was a Saturday morning. It was a lovely morning. I remember it very well. The sun was shining. Sounds like the start of a record, doesn't it? But the sun was shining, and we were going in with this young tigress, and she was quite young. She was about 2 years old, still quite big. She was around about 22 stone, so she was a chunk of an animal. Bearing in mind that we used to also go in with Siberians, which are much, much bigger. There was one particular Siberian that we used to go in with, who was probably hitting sort of 55, 60 stone. He was one humongous predator, one big animal. But he was also very dopey and very friendly, and he was like a big kitten, really. Not that you could have done much if he'd have turned. But, we were as sure as you can be, but you can't be 100%. But we were sure as you could be with him that he was absolutely fine. He was absolutely wonderful. Never had an issue with him. But the tigress, she was different. She was Bengali. So she was smaller stature. And she used to chance her arm a bit with you. She'd try and push the boundaries as to what she could get away with. And one of the things that she used to like to do was she would like to run at you and jump onto you, or just jump up and put her paws on your shoulders, and maybe have a bit of a fuss and what have you. Now, I used to go in with her, I've been in with her quite a few times, but not as many as the guy who hand reared her. And so I used to go in under his care and under his supervision, because obviously it was a new area for me to learn about, and a new animal to work with. So we went in with her this Saturday, and she was very playful. You could see in her eyes that she was up to mischief, though, that she had trouble in mind. You could see it, you could definitely see it. And she would run around, and she would run at me, and she'd try to surprise me, and she'd jump on me, and she'd put her paws on me, and do all sorts of wonderful things that tigers do. Certainly mischievous tiger. And I stood over by the enclosure fence, and she was in what looked like a pool of water. We used to have a pool in there because they love to get in there, and especially in the hot weather, they'd like to get in there and kind of cool off. So she got into the pool, and I was talking to the other keeper, and the next thing I know, she did a great big splash of water. She was probably around about, I don't know, maybe 25 feet from me, something like that. But she came bounding out of the water, great big splash of water, droplets everywhere. And the next thing I know, she was diving at me, and she was fully stretched out. Now, she hit me full frontal at quite a speed. And as I say, that sort of weight going at that speed, well, you can imagine sort of damage it could do to you. But as she's hit me, I vaguely remember her paws were sort of round the neck, and her head was to the side of mine, and we just went travelling back, and as you would, I tried to put my arm out to steady myself and to break my fall. Well, she came down full pelt on my arm, and she pushed it against the perimeter of the enclosure, and in doing so, I heard this massive crack, and it was like a bough of a tree breaking. It was that noisy, and so I kind of knew what the story was straight away. I knew that the arm was broken. So I looked down, and as I looked down, my arm was facing in a series of different directions. And I thought to myself, I don't know what goes through your mind when you have these accidents, whether it's shock or not. I thought to myself, that can't be my arm. But on reflection, well, who else's arm could it have been? I was the only one there, laying on the floor with her on top of me. And I thought, well, I'll just wiggle my fingers and I'll see if it is. And I wiggled my fingers, and you know what? Lo and behold, here's a surprise. That was my arm. So the other keeper, he wrangled her off of me, pushed the tigress to the back of the enclosure, just to enable me and give me time to get up onto my feet and assemble myself, as it were, best I could, and then get out of the enclosure. And we did this. So he bought me time. I got up, pulled my arm back into whatever position I could. I wasn't concentrating fully. I was more concerned about getting out of the enclosure at the time, and got out of the enclosure. And then when we were out of the enclosure, that was it. I more or less collapsed. They had to. Well, I'll tell a lie. They didn't get me a wheelchair to begin with. They walked me across to the staff room, got me an ambulance, took me to the hospital, and the hospital did an operation on my arm the very next day. After they x-rayed it, they found that it was the shoulder itself was completely shattered into many pieces. They were looking at something called a half a shoulder replacement, which they luckily they didn't do. They rebuilt what was left, and the humerus itself was smashed in half. It was broken in half, and that was almost compound. And I still to this day remember the agony that I had prior to having any painkillers while they were doing the X-rays of my arm to sort of ascertain the level of damage that was done to it. So they operated on me the next day. Plates, bolts, everything else in my arm, and it damaged my arm irreparably, and it sort of led to me leaving zookeeping. But it's one of those things, you go out in the morning and you never really know what the world's got in store for you. But it's one of those things that happened in a brief second. It was the bat of an eyelid, but it was also the change plan to my life. It led me to not work away from animals, because that's something I've always adored. Animals, always loved animals, always been my passion, and that's something that I'll make sure never happened. And that's why I went down the route of working with smaller animals, and also rescuing certain animals, or rescuing animals as well that are in distress. So that's where we're at now. I had a subsequent operation as well to remove wiring and plates and bits and bobs that were holding me together. But yeah, it was a very, very nasty accident. I've still got my arm. It's great. It's not great, rather. It's still workable. It's still usable, but not to the point that it used to be. But that's what happened, and that's just it's one of those things. It's surprising that when you go out in the mornings, you really never know what's gonna be in store for you during the course of that day. And that was just a little story about my accident when I was a zookeeper, and how it sort of changed my life and damaged my arm irreparably, really. So that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed that little story. It's a bit of a grim one. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I just wanted to give you a story, give you a little bit of an insight into me, because I didn't do a proper introduction video. So this is my way of doing it. I'm dropping little bits about me and my history into my videos as and how we go along, so that it gives you a bit of a better picture of me and who I am and where I want to be going and where I've come from. So yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying your day. I hope you're having fun. Stay safe. Don't go near tigers. That's Dan's warning for the day. Very good one. You better heed it. And that's about it. So take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll put another video up soon. Thanks very much. Bye, guys.